things are about to get a little more than dangerous, and you're going to see why here as we talk about how small business moves forward with a former Canadian infantry officer who was right on the front lines in warfare and combat, now on the front lines in business. He started his first ever business in 2016. He is slugging it out for all his life. We want to say hello and welcome to Jeff Alpaugh, the man behind Jeff Alpaugh Custom, the world's most dangerous dress shirts.
Garrett, thanks a lot for having me. I'm very excited. I'm super excited.
And right away, Jeff, you got to tell us the story before you get into what you're going through right now, because I look at you, Jeff, and I see you're the classic retailer who's battling and scrapping your way through this situation. But I know people will want to know how you went from the Army to the Dragon's Den to a business that has international acclaim. And so what's the story?
So I'm going to try to condense this to 1 or 2 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, I often answer this question about 45 minutes, which I know would be 3. I'd take your whole week. So I'm not going to do that to you. But the Coles Notes is, young man, very bad dresser. Okay. To the point where I couldn't get a job because I would go to interviews dressed so poorly that I looked like a complete fool. And therefore people assumed that I was a complete fool. And they may not have been wrong, but I was telegraphing an image that assured them that I was a fool, and I wasn't able to get a job. And I realized that I needed to learn about professional dress in order to sort of, people always want to move up somewhere, say in their career. I couldn't, my first step was just getting in the door, and I had to learn about professional clothing in order to do that. And so I got a job at Moore's, and I learned everything about dressing and wearing a suit, and I really found myself enjoying teaching others. So then I got a job at Harry Rosen, and I was just able to take that same training, but to a whole other level. But I also observed in that time a bunch of things that I thought, how when you start out in any job, at first you're just learning tons, you're like, this is awesome, and then you get to a point where it sort of tips, and all you can see is how you could do it better. Right.
I believe, Jeff, they call that the entrepreneurial seizure, when you got the idea in your head that, hey, I can do this.
Right. And at that time I wasn't actually like that, but I had all these things around fit and people would want to get shirts. Say somebody would see a shirt like I'm wearing, they'd be like, Jeff, I like the shirt that you're wearing, right? But I want actually the collar on this shirt on my left, and I want the cuff on this shirt on my right, and I want my own name on it, right? And I had this idea, well, why can't people mix and match like that?
Collars, cuffs,
right? Like that.
Names.
And we always talk like that. You go, oh, I can go to this restaurant. What if it could be like this,
Yeah.
but this, and elements from everything? I was like, well, what if we allowed people to take their favorite elements and put it all together, and then they create something uniquely their own, except for we would have essentially provided the ingredients. And then, if we're making it custom to their design, we'll make it custom to their fit, because that way every shirt will fit them.
Okay, and here's how maybe we can accelerate the story a little bit, because I want to dive into what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you launched in 2016. You launched in Fredericton, New Brunswick. You just opened a second store in Waterloo, Ontario.
Yeah.
You and Emily, your wife, you went on the Dragon's Den. You put yourself out there.
Oh, yeah.
And you launched a great store out of Fredericton, second location now in Kitchener, Waterloo. And I can just imagine what a whirlwind it's been. And then boom, you hit this situation that started about a month ago.
Exactly. Good thing you fast forwarded that, because I would have gone on and on. But yeah. So that's where we're at. After 4 years, it took a while to get there, but we are at this great expansion period, and we spent sort of a lot of our resources and time and energy and treasure to this big expansion. And one of the things that motivated it was, obviously I live in Fredericton. I love Fredericton. So I started there, but as I've gotten savvier, I'm like, hey, that's a market of convenience, but now I need to be in an optimal market. And I determined Waterloo is an optimal market for a lot of reasons. The best reason is I already had a lot of sales in Waterloo. So, fish where the fish are kind of thing. And then we're open for 3 weeks after, 6 to 9 months of preparation, and then pause. So that's sort of where we're at.
Right. And so the sales, the cash register.
That is true.
It's right.
Yeah.
And so I think in many ways, Jeff, and you know why we're doing these conversations is that we already know no one's going to get hit harder than small business.
Yeah.
You're in many ways on the front lines. You've got this military background to begin with. And I would have to think that some of that training, that instinctive training, this transition from peacetime CEO to wartime CEO is very, very real to a guy like you right now.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things like the military does a good job of teaching you is, one, planning in general, really planning, like the military, like the way that militaries win wars, is a simple process of shoot, move, and communicate, right? But in order to tie those three things together, you have to plan. You have to plan in like almost meticulous detail. And part of that is by analyzing all of the different factors that could contribute to success or failure. And once you do that a lot of times, you get good at doing it rapidly. And part of having a plan, though, is not being so married to it to the detriment of a changing situation. So I like to always ask myself, has the situation changed? And this is a good example where, I mean, even the most steadfast person will realize the situation has changed. And when the situation's changed, you then have to ask yourself, what is important now? And so what I've been doing is I'm kind of one of those guys who's a lot of running lists. That way I can like write stuff down, but then I can like come back to it when like it matters later. And I had a running list of topics that I needed to personally delve into, essentially study, but I don't normally study because normally I'm managing the stores, managing the business, managing the growth. I'm all about the face-to-face. I'm measuring people personally. I'm helping people out. I'm getting in the business when, and between in the business and on the business, I'm not necessarily, taking time like university hours to just study. So what's important now is e-commerce. And I set out to build essentially the Disneyland of dress shirts, right? I set out to build an in-person experience that would evolve and change retail, right? As people were saying retail was dying, I was going to prove and have my name in the history books as the guy who evolved retail, right? And that's why the shirts, right? When you come in and design your own shirt, it's like being at Disneyland. It is exciting. And so now Disneyland, they can't operate their parks like they used to, and I can't operate my stores like I used to. So what's important now is figuring out how to translate that experience as best as possible, into online and e-commerce in a way that we still generate revenue, so we still have livelihoods. And I've taken them, I'll say the first 3 weeks of this, incredibly frustrating, dude. Incredibly frustrating.
To be honest, yeah, there's no sugarcoating it, is it?
I mean, so obviously still frustrating now, but the first 3 weeks, incredibly frustrating because what I did was I just studied. I mean, first off, the first week I had a lot of, like fires to put out isn't the right word, but okay, we've got all this stuff that people are going to come in and pick up, and now we're going to ship out. We've got that, there's just a lot of how we're going to change everything. And that's not necessarily getting ahead. That's just reacting and adapting to be effective, right? But then in order to get ahead, I started studying a lot on selling online, e-commerce itself in terms of like how you actually set up your website and that for better conversions, and then social media marketing. And this may not be the best goal. In fact, I've told many people this goal and I've been criticized heavily for it. But I think one thing that helps me, at least, I don't want to preach for everybody, is to set a goal. Even if it's a dumb goal, it is better than a bad goal. And a lot of people will not set a goal unless like an obvious goal people will set. They'll be like, I want to lose 10 pounds. But people will not set a directional, difficult goal because everyone they tell will think it's dumb. But so I set a goal. We're going to sell one pair of socks to one new person on Facebook every single day. And now somebody would say, well, if you did that, that would not be a lot of money. What people don't realize, like, okay, yeah, but people are still calling in and saying, hey, can I buy a suit, or can I do this, or can I do those things? But keeping that as the sole fundamental goal, what that's going to do and has done has taught us how to make Facebook campaigns that make sense and are optimized, right?
So let me see if I understand this. And you just gave me an idea right here in the spot.
Yeah.
One pair of socks.
One pair of socks.
So I already need some socks. I can use socks.
Perfect.
Right. So I'm your customer now, right?
That's right.
So where do I go to buy your socks? I just go to jeffalpaugh.custom.com.
You go to jeffalpaugh.com, but I'm going to tell you something. Go to Google and type in the world's most dangerous dress shirts.
The world's most dangerous dress shirts, typed in on Google, and I can place an order for some socks.
That's right. And on the home page, there'll be a picture of a sock. Click the socks. We got about 35 styles. Right. They're wild and crazy.
Which I need, which, by the way, is a real need. My socks are boring, Jeff.
And you know what I'm going to say? You have the need, but you have people listening to this show and they know you, right? Or they've been to one of your conferences, or they don't know you yet, but they like you. Remember, your buddy Gare, I'm talking to you, the listener, your buddy Gare needs a pair of socks. And think about how much more those socks would mean to him coming from you than from himself. This is like sending a little bit of flowers. Great gift at this time.
What I all kidding aside, and I will do this, I'll go order some socks today, so I'll at least hit your daily quota today. But my point is this, Jeff, I think before this even started, you were already thinking about how does everything marry from the bricks and mortar retail into the online world. And I'm wondering if there's anything you can, because I know you've built your brand online and you've done a great job, the world's most dangerous dress shirts. I think it's adds character and personality, everything that we talk about to a brand. But I wonder if there's any insights you can share right now for people who are realizing, oh my goodness, I should have been moving on this 6 months ago, a year ago, but how do I get up to speed faster?
Yeah, so I will say, if you've already positioned yourself to be a brand, that would help. But if you haven't, it's fine, because it is what it is, and you got to fight with what you got where you are at the time that you're in. So to have positioned yourself as a brand, that was something I always wanted to do, knowing that I'm not a technical guy. I don't really like computers, but I knew it would be important to have the brand built so that we could, I guess, onlineify it, if you will. The second piece is you got to adapt as it is. I will say there are a lot of mechanical things you can do that will make your life a lot simpler, right? And I've learned those things over the last 4 weeks. And 1 week ago, I had a significant breakthrough where after, testing out 15 different types of Facebook online campaigns, I found 2 that run in concert that are essentially like the ultimate 1-2 punch, right? And now that's working, and we're getting closer to that goal. And there's certain mechanics I've learned about our the way we manage our social media that make it much easier and much more powerful, much more impactful. And these aren't like content tips, right? Like this, I'm talking about actual mechanical, technical things that are very simple that can actually be set up in advance. And they're not cheesy. It doesn't like, oh, people are gonna be like, oh, this all looks automated. But things you can do, just like how you build your business to have systems, right? You document what your systems are. You train your troops so that everyone's following a system. Well, there's actually things you can do for your social media and your advertising online that are actually systems. It's just that robots are doing the system.
So what's the one? So go from the strategy into the one tip. Anyone watching right now who might not be as savvy and as educated in the online world and some of the e-commerce things you're doing, what's the one practical tip, Jeff, do you think you could?
Very practical. I researched a lot of social media delivery platforms, and I've invested in one called Sendable. Okay, I don't work for Sendable. I don't get a kickback from Sendable. You do have to pay for it. But what this does, and I'm super excited, I'm going to share this with a few folks next week in great detail, sort of because there's about 4 tools that I'm using now, but Sendable would be your anchor point. And what this does is allows you to schedule your posts in advance, right? And then when you have that all on this calendar, there's a couple things that you'll find. The advantage isn't truly the auto scheduling. It's that once you put everything out there, you'll automatically make a good mix of a product post, a brand post, a personal post, right? All those things that keep people engaged. So instead of being like product, ask, you'll be like, here's the product, here's me, like, hey, here's Gare at his first presentation, right? Like I've got a post coming up where I talk about my first wedding speech. And actually, Gare, I'd never done a public speech before, and a friend of mine at a fairly late age asked me to give a wedding speech, and I'll say it went pretty well. And it was like, in my mind, it was like, boom, like I got to weaponize whatever the hell that was. And I talk about it in this post, right? So you get this good mix of like why the brand's the brand, why you're you, why your product is product, and it keeps people very engaged. But it's way easier to do that effectively when you've got this God's view. On top of it, you can collaborate. So Gary and I were on the same team, right? You and I were on the same team. I would write up 2 months worth of posts and you'd be like, Jeff, this one sucks. This one's too extreme. Let me add this sentence in here and look at how much funnier it got, right?
So you realize, of course, now everyone's going to be looking to sendable,
Yeah.
no strings attached from Jeff Alpaugh
No.
as something to investigate going forward. Jeff, just before we wrap up, you and Emily are like, I think your entrepreneurial story is incredible because you had one business in Fredericton, you just opened in Kitchener-Waterloo. Now you have to adapt. And you've also got a little one, JAC. I think
That's
he's
right.
just over a year old, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's
So,
right, yeah.
Yeah, there. So you and JAC, and you got another one on the way.
That's right.
So before we wrap up, how do you explain to anyone watching the value of being very focused, very tough mentally as an entrepreneur to get through this?
Yeah, well, I look at it like this. You know, you kind of got buckets. There's stuff you can help. There's stuff you can't help, right? I think things that contribute to staying mentally tough. Of course, I believe in exercising every morning, or at least every other morning. But also communication with everyone on your team. One thing that we kind of forget when you're in charge is that people like following people who think about situations, even if they're wrong, right? And you can think about that in your life. You know, would you rather follow somebody who's wrong or somebody who is just unwilling to commit to a direction, right? Of course, you take somebody who's wrong than somebody who's wrong via not making a decision, right? So I think just like coming up with a plan and then deciding on the plan, even if it's the wrong plan, kind of allows you to sleep better at night because you know that you're making forward progress, right? And for me, I think of building a business. One thing I like about building a business is it's like you're putting one brick down every day. And like after year one, you got a whole wall. Right after year two, you have a second wall. Right after, so you just got to keep putting that brick down every day. Whereas I do think that the people who are going to have a harder time are the people who are like, oh, we need to be doing this. Oh no, we need to be doing this. Oh, we need to be doing this. It's like, dude, you pick a line of attack and you prosecute it to the end. And I'll tell you, even the guys on my team, which I'm going to call them like, you know, Jeff, I was thinking about t-shirts. T-shirts are cool, or I was thinking about socks, but everyone needs t-shirts now. Stop. We are going to prosecute socks until we sell one sock to one new person every single day. And when that is done, we can talk about t-shirts, we can talk about dress shirts, we can talk about big collars, small collars, every type of collar. You see what I'm saying? You gotta
Jeff, listen,
pick a direction, and you just prosecute until you get that done.
Jeff, I think this has been invaluable. I think we're going to have you on again someday because I think
I love it.
A fountain of wisdom from the front lines. And so, Jeff Alpaugh, we wish you all the best. If I picked up anything today, it was shoot, move, communicate. There's always a way to weaponize and improvise. And we too can very much move forward in these dangerous times with this dangerous attitude. We thank Jeff Alpaugh for stopping by and show us all how we can all pull together and lead together in these historic times.
All right. Thanks, Gare. Appreciate it.